Hello out there, all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game My Dear Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear, listening into another Gamer's Thoughts discussion. And this time I'm going to be talking about how Capcom and SNK's crossover series could have still been ongoing and could have advanced throughout the years to this day if they would have kept renewing those contracts. So there's going to be a little bit of groundwork. And when I talk about this, I'm going to basically be talking about the arcade / home console games, which were Capcom vs. SNK, Capcom vs. SNK Pro, and Capcom vs. SNK 2, and SVC Chaos, or SNK vs. Capcom. I do know that the handheld games do have some part in things, and those were the ones that were mostly developed by SNK. I'm not going to dive too deeply into those because those could also be a separate continuity to themselves. But there's a distinction between the home / arcade games that can't really be seen with the handheld games. So, firstly, I think these games could have had storylines, could have had story beats that they didn't have to be major story beats, but they could be consistent. So, for Capcom vs. SNK, I would see that series as the more, okay, things were okay in this particular timeline, and these characters were able to meet up and cross over with each other. Because in every stage in Capcom vs. SNK, minus a couple, you see that there's life. There are people busy doing things and some people watching the fights in the tournament. You see that, you notice that, you know it's happening. Even SNK vs. Capcom 2 has the big arena that is, I think, basically funded by Ken and Robert. So that's how I see that. But, it's a world where everything's good. The crossover clash happened, and somehow the characters were able to stop it from becoming horrendous. So basically, these worlds collided. All these characters are together in the same space. This could be a positive outcome world for the series. Well, yeah, there are still some major boss threats that pop up, but life goes on and you still see people out and about. But then you turn to SVC Chaos and you look around the locations and the stages, and unless something is a natural location, everything looks run down and desolate, almost like they're in the Fist of the North Star universe. And that would be an interesting thing to have played off of, because the backgrounds, you look at them, they look great. But again, things look desolate. They look run down, like life has been damn near extinguished. Yeah, there are people moving about. There are people moving around. But it doesn't look like there are many people. And there's any number of theories you could come up with. I mean, you could say it happened because of Mars people from Metal Slug. Demons could have wiped out the Earth. Any slew of things could have happened. And in this world, that's why you see Takuma as Mr. Karate versus being his normal self. Because the world is in such a sad state, he stays at peak readiness to fight. Which is an interesting concept. And it's also the type of world that Akuma would thrive in because of survival of the strongest, much like, Apocalypse from the X-Men. That's Akuma's thing. So I could understand that situation creating the type of need for a serious Mr. Karate to actually pull off stops and truly use his demon fist to its fullest extent. And for Akuma to actually push himself to his fullest capabilities in that type of world. And then you have the angel version of Athena and red armor or firebrand representing the devil or demonic side. Again, this world is desolate and run down. Things look like they are in dire straits. So you could have Capcom vs. SNK be the positive side, where the population's still thriving, people are still there on Earth. There's a mild story of people trying to take over, but nothing like that you need a deep explanation for. But you still have all these people meeting up with each other, having these grand tournaments, and then you have like a big bad that they still have to take on and fight. Then you turn around to SNK versus Capcom and you have the world in such disarray and disorder, you don't see a lot of people and everyone's fighting each other when they come into contact. That could be a far more interesting and Wild West type of world that we don't normally see these characters in. And they could have given any number of explanations. Could have said that Orochi and Gil came across each other and their clash just destroyed everything. You have any number of godly ranked characters in Capcom or SNK that could have come into contact with each other and wiped everything out. And you find the world in such a horrid mess afterwards, and people are fighting each other trying to protect themselves and survive that world. And with SVC Chaos, with everyone still looking like themselves normally, you could say it was a very recent event, which could have led to a SV and an SNK versus Capcom 2, or is the one I named SVC Order. It's SNK versus Capcom 2 SVC Order. So Chaos and Order, and then whatever words you want to come up with after that for sequels that will follow up. That could have been an awesome take on these games. And as the story progresses forward, and again, you count these as two separate continuities. So as story progresses forward in the SNK versus Capcom universe, you see that things get worse and worse and worse along the way. In this way, you could come up with new designs for the characters to fit this world. You could see as time goes on and things progress, their clothes and things become more tattered, but then they hone their skills so much that they become much better, stronger fighters. And they're always dealing with this constant struggle. It could have been so cool to have that, and then to have that contrast, Capcom doing Capcom vs. SNK games, where yeah, they have a big bad and the story moves forward where they're fighting more powerful and godly beings, but their situation is nowhere near as dire as that in the SNK versus Capcom stuff. That could have been cool as all hell, and it would have been a great way to continue the rivalry going forward for the characters and the clashes. It would have been awesome. Plus, it would have been a way to allow these teams to have something more creative to think about and bounce off of. So basically, you could have a catalyst event that both games are based off of that clashes the universes, but it splits into two different continuities, two different universes from it. Be some awesome stuff. And then throughout the development of the games, you could have them reference each other. Like maybe something bleeds out of one universe into the next, and you get to see it. So there's a potential chance you could swap versions of characters between the two of them. Like the one for the desolate SNK versus Capcom world, that version of Terry somehow ends up temporarily in the Capcom versus SNK themed built universe, and like they swap characters back and forth every now and again. That would have been some awesome shit to do, because there's so many ways that you could run with that, and it would make so many people hyped and be interested. And I would say, yeah, the SNK versus Capcom universe would require more storytelling along the way, but that's fine. Especially if you did the storytelling through the characters' different dialogues when they met up with each other. It would be cool, it'd be awesome. That would be something so amazing to look at. And I'm like, and I only recently thought about this. That's because I was going back over stuff about SNK versus Capcom, and I just like, I don't know why I never paid attention to these backgrounds before. And then I started thinking, I was like, but when you compare them to Capcom versus SNK, that world looks vibrant, lively, it's colorful. But then you go to SNK versus Capcom, SVC Chaos, outside of some of the natured environments, things are run down, the colors are so drab, and it's in high contrast to the looks of the characters. So that's what made me think about it. I was like, that would be awesome to do. And when you consider it, the fact that Violet Ken ended up in Ultra Street Fighter 2 is one of the types of situations that could have happened from what I was talking about, where they could cross the characters over, or the fact that Dad does moves like Ryo, Robert, and the Sakazaki family from Art of Fighting. I mean, he was meant to be a parody of them in the first place, but going forward, like Street Fighter 4 and 5, he has moves that represent those characters. So, in a way, it would be like, okay, parts of what this character experienced from that world crossed over into this world. And they could have done that. Like, just imagine if they had started doing that back in 2000 to now, how things could look. How drastically different they could be. That could have been something so awesome. And it didn't get the chance to thrive because their contracts, once they ran out, they didn't go back and say, hey, let's renew this and see what we can get out of it. I mean, and they probably had their reasons for that. I mean, it might have been, the cost might have been too much, or SNK couldn't hold up their side of things in that exchange, because SNK, I believe during that time frame, did go through bankruptcy. So, I mean, there was a lot going on there. But there's nothing saying that they couldn't start doing something like that now. And I do feel like it is a missed opportunity that we didn't get an SNK versus Capcom with the art style of King of Fighters 12 and 13. I really wish we did. It would have been beautiful, but it never happened. Now, not much I can say about that. I mean, if you want to see what the characters would look like, especially the Capcom characters, there are fan-made creations that kind of represent that, and they look awesome. But it's just, I really wish that this is something that would have happened because of how great it could have been, how awesome it could have been. And just as someone who likes fighting games, I would have loved this to happen. I would have loved this to continue on. And that's what it kind of upsets me. I'm like, damn, that shit would have been beautiful. But it didn't get the chance to get that far. So I'm like, oh man, this is wholeheartedly a missed opportunity. But there's any number of factors as to why this couldn't have happened. There's any number of factors for that. But if there were just some subtle tweaking here and there about little things about SVC Chaos and little things about Capcom vs. SNK, especially the second one. Shit could have been fucking amazing. It could have been the best fighting game crossover series to this day. I mean, many people still consider it the best fighting game crossover series, but it could have legitimately, without a question, been the best. And that's what hits me a little bit in the heart, because I'm like, damn, that shit would have been fucking beautiful. Would have been fucking awesome. I mean, obviously we do have people making their own versions, their own fan game versions of what these concepts could have been. And a lot of those are good. But I would have loved to see what Capcom and SNK would have officially done with this. Because that is the thing that draws my interest. That's the thing that makes me curious. Like, what would they have actually done with this? And if I could ever sit in a room with both these companies, I would pitch this idea all day and come up with concepts on the fly talking about this. But I'm not in position to do that. I mean, hey, if people start following me and start reposting my stuff, maybe I will get into that position, but I'm not in that position right now. But it's just like me thinking about myself, and like teenage me to now playing those games I would have been all over them. So, I'm going to end it here. If anybody else wants to give their opinions, their thoughts, go ahead. I'm always privy for that type of stuff. But otherwise, thank you guys very much for listening, and keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy, and I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in. If you would be interested in supporting my efforts in content creation, please head on over to Amazon and look up The Game Idea Guy Presents Gaming Word Search, and you will find both Volume 1 and Volume 2 up for sale. Thank you very much once again, and I hope to be able to create more content for you in the future. Peace out.